Hi, I'm Ginny from Ginny Coppenhall Photography, and I'm back with you to set another photography challenge as part of the Digital Dukes Creative Homework Programme. My photography challenge series is called Eat, Sleep, Create, Repeat, and this is number 7. So there are 6 other ones. If you want to go back and have a look at those videos, please do. They're still up on the Dukes social media pages, so it's not too late to take part in those either, and we love to see them. As you may know by now, we absolutely love looking at the photographs and how you've responded to the challenges, and I'm going to tell you the ways you can do that in a minute. So I hope you've enjoyed the challenges so far. They're a chance to document some of what's going on for us all at the moment. There might be some creative inspiration for you. There may be a chance to do something fun with the family, share these tasks with everybody and see what everybody comes up with, or do it as a team. They may be a chance to learn some photography skills, because each week, as well as setting a challenge, I give you some tips and a way to push yourself that little bit further. So the ways that you can share your photographs with us are these. So you can share your photograph underneath this video. If you're watching on the Facebook page, go to the comments and share your photo there. And we love you to tell us about them as well if you like. Also, you can go to Instagram at the Dukes Lancaster and tag the Dukes there. Tag on Twitter too at the Dukes Theatre. And also, if you're able to email your photographs to tom@dukeslancaster.org, we really appreciate it. We love to compile some of the creative responses to the challenges that we're setting. So what's your challenge for this week? Well, I'd like you to tell us a story about a person. So you may immediately think, I want you to take a portrait. And I do, kind of. It's not a traditional portrait. So obviously portraits usually involve the face for good reason. But I'm going to encourage you to think beyond that and to take a faceless portrait. And my immediate thought was, I'd love you to use objects. So a portrait of any description is telling a story about a person. And there isn't anything that has to say that person has to be in it or that you have to see their face. So as I say, my first thought was objects. So do you have a collection of objects? So it could be about yourself, of course. Do you have a collection of objects that represent a person that you could arrange and take a photograph of? So this person could be with us, or they may have died. So whichever you'd prefer. So think about how you're going to arrange the objects, and think about how many objects you'd like in the picture. Try not to perhaps overclutter. I'm often talking about simplicity in images and how that can be more effective than trying to put too much into the frame. So what represents that person best? What tells a story about that person? You may want to include an old photograph of that person, maybe from when they were a child, just an idea. Or things that belong to them, or just things that represent them. So that's one way. There's other ways too. I found this example in one of my books. So this book is called Read This If You Want to Take Great Photographs of People. So that might come across as backwards to you, I'm not sure. But it's by Henry Carroll. And in it, there's this photograph by this person. And I'm going to hold that up to the camera because I'm not sure I know how to pronounce their name, but it's called The Divers, and it was taken in 1930. And it says, nothing in the rule book says that your subject needs to face the camera. So as I've just been saying, traditionally a portrait is a face of somebody, but we can still get a lot of information, perhaps more sometimes, by them not looking at the camera. Or perhaps you might want to take a picture of someone, could be yourself, where your face is obscured in some way, and perhaps think about obscured with what or how. And that might reveal something about the person that you may not have been able to convey in just a traditional portrait. So there's a few ways of doing it. I'm sure there are lots more. I'm just thinking perhaps hands as well. Perhaps hands could tell a story about somebody, especially if those hands are doing something that is meaningful to that person. So it could be a hands shot. So each week I set an extra challenge to you if you want to push your photography skills that bit further and learn something new. And this week I'd like you to look up flat lays. So flat lays are a particular way of composing an image, and it's overhead photography, and it usually involves objects laid out flat. Flat lays. There's a particular name for it as well, and it's knolling, I think, KNOLLING, which is a very strange word, but have a Google, look up some examples of images that use flat lays. So it's very popular at the moment. It's very contemporary. It's used a lot in adverts, for example, and it's very clean. Often it's quite simple, and all the objects relate to each other in some way, usually, and give some thought to how you lay them out and how they relate to each other. So this really only applies if you're going to do the type of portraiture with the objects, as I mentioned earlier. So this might be just one way of conveying that. So when you're looking overhead with your camera, obviously you have to think about how you're holding the camera or your phone so that you don't drop it, because it can be a bit tricky. And also think about where you are in terms of the light, and don't position yourself where you're going to obscure the lights, especially if you're using window light. So flat lays and the clean, simple look, often lamps can come in handy, perhaps one on each side to avoid creating too much shadow. That's just another thought. So have a look at examples, see what you're drawn to and what you might like to try to emulate. And we love to see your photographs. So after I've stopped talking, there'll be another reminder of how to share those with us. And I'll see you next week.